Hey there, Justin Christensen here, the co-founder and president of Conversion Fanatics, and today I wanted to talk about how to analyze your split test data and when to actually declare a test a winner if your results are showing that you have a winner. Now, one of the biggest problems that I see people make is they don't gather a big enough sample size. So maybe you have a test that's winning by 20 or 30% or more early on, and you've ran it for a few days, and maybe you've got 40 or so conversions on that test, and they immediately think, okay, we've got a winner, it's showing improvement, let's make that the new control. Well, the problem is that you don't have a big enough sample size, and to get statistically significant or statistically confident results, you need to have a much bigger sample size. So an example of this is we had a test that was winning by about 20 or 30% recently. I forget the exact figure. But as we gathered more data and let it run longer, it actually trended downward and ended up losing by a handful of percentage points. I think it was like 5 or 6%. So if we would have just automatically thought that that test was going to be a winner, we would have been leading ourselves down the wrong path and actually hurting the conversions overall and long term. So what we generally recommend is don't start looking at the data until you have at least 50 conversions per variation and you have at least a calendar week in there, because weekend traffic is going to convert differently than your weekday traffic. So you need to have a big enough sample size in there, and then obviously try to run it to statistically significance at least 95%. And some of the testing software out there are pretty liberal in their calculations of statistically confident results. And a case in point is we had a test recently that showed a 90+% improvement and showed 99% confidence in only about 3 days. Well, that raises some red flags for us, because 3 days isn't a big enough sample size, and we only had, on the winning variation, I think we only had about 50 conversions. And yes, it was a massive improvement, but as we let that test run longer, we didn't show a 90% improvement, we only showed about a 30% improvement. And then the data kind of leveled off from there. So we let it run for about 10 days instead of 3 and ended up with about a 30% improvement. Yes, it was still an improvement, but if we would have just called it at say 3 days, we would have not had the accurate data to go on to inform our future tests. So what we generally will look at when we're A/B testing is we'll look at statistical confidence, obviously, but if it's on a short time frame or the sample size is too small, then we'll let that test run longer. We look for trends in the data. So if it's consistently stayed consistent and up over the course of the experiment, chances are you're going to have a win. If it's up and down or variable, then you might need to get a bigger sample size. Or if it just shows dead even, or it's only fluctuating by a percentage point or two up and down, then you might just want to cut that test and move on, because reaching significance and getting statistically sound data is going to be very difficult for you. So we always, and a side note of that, we always pass that additional data when we're split testing over to analytics, so we can get a second set of eyes on the data, and then we run our own calculations for statistical confidence. And you can do a search for statistical significance calculator online. I believe VWO and Convert and Optimizely, they all have their own calculators that you can run it through. Personally, we have a spreadsheet here that we use that we had created by an Oxford mathematician to make sure that we had all of the correct data for our clients. So the biggest thing is make sure you are getting a big enough sample size on your data. Be patient with the results. Split testing is the long game. It's not going to be a miracle overnight, but if you're doing it effectively and you're following the data, you are going to get exponential growth as time goes on. So that's all I got for this video today. If you enjoyed it or think other people might benefit from it, be sure to give us a like, give us a share, subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys again on another video.